Yes, welcome into Sports Bet. Betting Insight today, Wednesday, June 15th. Paulie and Teddy, deep dive today. U.S. Open preview with Brian Blessing. Play of the day, of course, and two games to break down. With the big game breakdown, we have the Astros and the Cardinals and the Indians and the Royals. Times they are a-changing. Look at this. Las Vegas is getting an NHL team, and after 4 years ago, Gary Bettman went to court in New Jersey and said, legalized gambling will cause irreparable harm to the NHL and our sport. He was full of it, and this wasn't even a big deal, and this was expected, Teddy, that Las Vegas was going to get an NHL team.
That's the beauty of this story, Paul. It really speaks to how the culture in the United States as a whole has legitimately changed in favor of more freedom for all of us, meaning, yeah, you can bet. This is a huge deal. Paulie, I moved out to Vegas in 1998. You came, I believe, the next year? Or,
2000.
Soon after. And I'm telling you, there was no way Vegas was getting a major sports franchise. No way. And it wasn't because the population wasn't big enough. It was because the gambling culture here in Las Vegas just wasn't mainstream. It really wasn't. Fast forward 15 years. Or 18 years. And lo and behold, now all of a sudden, not only is there a team coming to Vegas, there's nobody against it. There wasn't anybody saying, oh, well, I'm really worried about whether the game's going to be fair. There was nothing, no criticism, just a normal expansion. I guess the announcement hasn't come, and still sources are saying.
They vote on it next week, but come on, that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. But there's no yelp of protests. It's just business as usual. Vegas, for the first time that I can recall, is being treated like a normal U.S. city.
Yep. And I got news for you. The Raiders are next. I think they're coming here too.
They might. And that would obviously be a paradigm shift. But I don't think that the NHL moving to Las Vegas really affects the odds on the Raiders moving to Las Vegas. And this is why, Paul, because the NHL is going to do or the NFL, I should say, is going to do whatever they want to do. And whether the Raiders move to Vegas has as much to do with A, what's going on in Oakland, and B, what's going on in San Antonio as any other factors. You know, if Oakland makes a good deal, if Oakland is going to build them a stadium, they'll stay. If San Antonio's deal trumps Las Vegas's deal, they'll move to San Antonio. So even though this legitimizes Vegas as a city and legitimizes sports betting in the U.S. at a level that it's never been legitimized before, I don't think it affects the odds on whether the Raiders are going to move here or not.
I'll tell you what, there'll be a riot, too, for whatever reason, if they don't want the games on the board. But you're going to be able to bet on the local team.
Yeah, and I mean, I got a couple of good quotes here. Here's one from Jay Rude. He's the, what's his official title these days? The vice president of something at MGM. He's a racing sportsbook director. Vice president of racing sports for MGM Resorts. Quote, I would expect to book the games. Obviously, MGM and T-Mobile, the arena where they'll be playing, will be big players with the expansion team. I'm excited to see how the betting action will be on the games. If a league is willing to go in the direction of having a team in Las Vegas, that may indicate some changing views on sports betting. But on the other hand, they may just say the benefit of having a team here would outweigh the betting aspect. Betting could take a back seat to the larger picture. I agree with what Rude is saying, but the bottom line is they're going to be betting on these games. There's going to be action on these games, and you can make your bet and walk down the hall and go see a hockey game. And that, my friends, is a positive sign, not just here in Vegas, but for where our culture has moved as a whole.
Tuesday night, Columbus in town. Are people going?
Yeah, all the people from Columbus will come in. And I mean, that's the thing that people forget, is that it's not just for the locals in Vegas. It's an excuse for everyone, for every fan of every visiting team to take a trip to Vegas once or twice a year. Are they selling out? I don't know. I would think so. But, I mean, you know, we talk about the viability of it long term. Look, the Southwest franchises haven't done that well. Caesars and MGM are combined, $30 billion in debt. Caesars in bankruptcy right now. The gaming industry is in decline. Wynn and the Sands Corporation, Venetian Palazzo, have issues with Macau generating fewer revenues. Yeah, there are a lot of issues with Vegas long term, but the NHL doesn't care. At this stage, all they want is a check. They got a check for $500 million. Problem solved.
Yeah, bingo. You got that right. 14,000 season ticket deposits. So they are fired up for hockey in Las Vegas. Time for some bad bets and bad beats. How about the Blue Jays? The books got slaughtered on this one. The Blue Jays bet from $2.10 up to $3.
Yeah, that's a big move of Toronto money. And, I mean, it wasn't even close. It was 9-0 in the third. Never in doubt. Donaldson and Encarnacion combined 5 hits, 2 homers, 7 RBIs. And the books have a very bad result with the Blue Jays-Phillies game.
And we told you about the Cubs off a loss. Lackey looked great. Cubs get the win against the Nationals on the road.
Yeah, and again, the shops took a ton of Cubs money. Bet basically from Pick'em, -105 up to -130. Remember this. I don't know that people recognize this. Since May 1st, there's only 2 pitchers in baseball with a better ERA than John Lackey. One's named Kershaw, one's named Bumgarner. That's pretty good guys to be mentioned in the same breath with. That's where Lackey's out right now. Cubs off a loss, now 15-4, including, I believe, 6 straight cashes following a single defeat.
Yep, very good. How about another bad bet? The Padres, they were chalk again. Pomerantz got roughed up early.
Yeah, he sure did. He gave up 5 in the top of the first. The ball game's over before half the late arriving fans sit down. You can't give up 5 in the first at Petco. Not in the top of the first. And it was rough. We had an infield single RBI with 2 outs and then a grand slam following that. And, that's brutal. You're just this close to getting out of the inning and end up giving up 5. But Padres, it's hard for me to recognize that team as a favorite. And they had no business as chalk again last night.
And numbers we love sharing with you here on SportsBit. The Twins now 9-0-1 to the over in their last 10. That's not going to lead SportsCenter.
Well, that's the beauty of totals, all right? If the Twins won 10 games in a row, guess what? They'd be the lead story, maybe the second story on SportsCenter. We'd be talking about them. 10 straight wins do that all the time. But not 10 straight overs or 10 straight unders. Nobody notices except bettors who are paying attention. And these streaks have legitimate carryover effect, Paulie. And it's simple to understand how. Hot lineups stay hot until proven otherwise. Bad starting pitching results in overworked gas can bullpens. Period. So you have a hot lineup and you have some bad starting pitching and your bullpen's out of gas. Guess what? You go over today and you go over again tomorrow and you go over again the next day, and there's a legitimate carryover effect. Unders are the same way, these streaks. Cold lineups stay cold. Lineups go out cold. It happens all the time in baseball. You have decent starting pitching. Guess what? Your bullpen stays rested and stays effective. Overs do beget overs. Unders do beget unders. And total streaks, Paulie, are worth riding, especially when you catch them early. And, of course, this Twins streak, their lineup's been hitting. Their bullpen, of course, dead last in major leagues in saves, number 26 in ERA, and they have most assuredly done their part to inflate the scoreboards.
Bet on the streak, not against it. Remember we told that roulette story a couple months ago. We found out the hard way when we came to town in 2000 and 1998. Jesus. Good breakdown there, Teddy. Up next, we get to the Indians and the Royals and deep dive U.S. Open preview on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.
Back on SportsBit, big game breakdown. Remember, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Indians and the Royals. This is Kluber against Kennedy. Kluber's $1.35, 7.5 the total, $1.20 over -120. How unlucky last year was Kluber? 15 pitchers had a FIP of less than 3. Look at this graphic. The win-loss record in the FIP of less than 3 in 2015. Kluber, 9-16. Others, 220 and 126. Come on. After getting less support than any pitcher in MLB last year through 2015 and the early part of 2016, the Indians have scored 13 runs in the last 2 games for Kluber, and he's loving it, Teddy.
Yeah, he sure is. And, of course, he only allowed 2 runs on 5 hits in those wins with 14 strikeouts. So now, all of a sudden, Kluber 4-1 his last 5 trips to the hill, and he's worked through that frustration of consistently not getting support. And it's definitely worth noting, this is a stat. Let's throw it up on the screen. Show this graphic. With a lead, Corey Kluber locks in like few other pitchers can. Look at him in 2016. With a lead, an ERA of 2.02. He's challenging hitters. When he doesn't have the lead, it's a different story. 5.67. And it's not a fluke. Again, the ERA? No, let's look at the batting average, the slugging percentage, the on-base percentage. The guy is challenging hitters in a very impressive way when he's working with a little bit of margin. And that's something to pay attention to, not just for pregame wagering, but also for in-game wagering. He's been as good as anyone when he's got a chance to pitch with some support.
And now he's got Lindor, who's really helping him out offensively. He's played a full year now since he's made his debut June of last year. Look at this graphic. His first 161 games, you see the average, the on-base percentage, the slugging, 19 home runs, 84 RBIs, and look at that WAR. And for some perspective, how does that compare to a full season in 2015? Look at, he's with Harper and Trout and Donaldson. When you look at the 2015 WAR, here's a guy you don't hear a lot about, but he's with the elite and the big names in MLB, Teddy.
Yeah, there's only 5 guys higher than him. And when the 5 guys that are above you on the wins above replacement chart are Harper, Trout, Donaldson, Goldschmidt, and Votto, start paying attention to this guy. Cleveland's very real, and this is a team that I think there's money to be made with over the course of the next few weeks, perhaps few months, and perhaps somewhere down the line when it comes to a future wager. But, for Kansas City, things have gone south in recent weeks, let's be honest. And the Royals, they were really gambling and got Ian Kennedy having something left in the tank. We talked about him having a chance to have some potential in April. It really hasn't worked out, And he's 4-5 with a 4.06. Those are average number, but boy, you look at the other metrics and you see nothing but problems. Look at this chart. The XFIP going sky high compared to where it was 2 years ago. Big jump last year, big jump against this year. The XFIP jump last year, big jump this year. The Sierra jump last year, big jump this year. So it's a second straight season of a decline across the board. And people made money with Ian Kennedy. I made money with him over the first couple of starts of the campaign. 4-2 with a 2.13 over his first 6 starts. His last 6 starts, well, he's winless. And the ERA's gone above 6. He's given up almost as many home runs, 6, as strikeouts, 7, over the course of his last 2 starts. Worth noting, KC has won the first 2 in the series in typical Royals fashion. They just wear you down and find ways to grind runs, and they have won 8 straight home games.
Yep, game number 2, again, live on sportsbookreview.com. The Astros and the Cardinals. It's McHugh against Wainwright. Cardinals $1.15, 8.5 the total. McHugh went from 19-7 with a 3.89 ERA last year to what he's fallen to 5-5 with a 5.22. But the strikeouts are up, the walks are down. What does that mean? Time to investigate, Teddy.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do right here on SportsBit. So let's start. We'll take a look at the advanced metric numbers. You want to investigate a pitcher? This is your first place to look. And what do we have? No big difference. Again, we're using the 3 different stats. There's fielding and pitching, adjusted fielding and pitching, and then Sierra, which I don't even know what it stands for. But there are 3 different looks for, as something that's supposed to be better than ERA, based on how the ball is hit, how hard the ball is hit, et cetera, as opposed to simply just how many runs get scored off various hits. So the McHugh numbers say the guy's pitching the same. The advanced metrics show he's basically the same guy that he was last year, even though his numbers have declined precipitously. But there is a lot of luck in baseball. And one of the luck that we talk about is BABIP, batting average on balls in play. Sometimes you hit the balls right at somebody. Sometimes you hit the balls into the gaps or where nobody's at. And when you look at the BABIP, we'll call them bottom feeders in 2016, the guys who have been particularly unlucky. Well, there's Colin McHugh right in the top 5 amongst the unluckier pitchers in baseball so far this season.
Okay, so it looks like he's the same guy he always was. Now I guess we can start to say the same thing for Wainwright off his recent form.
Oh, yeah, Wainwright's been pretty good. And if you've been betting on Wainwright or betting him under the total, you've been cashing some tickets in recent weeks. Again, the full season-long numbers aren't going to show it. And we've talked a lot about Wainwright on this show because Wainwright's been a moneymaker for us. He was a moneymaker as a bet-against guy back in April.
Yes.
And he's been a moneymaker as a bet-on guy in May and June. So the full season numbers, 5-4, 5.21 ERA, but the fielding and independent pitching is down below 4. And his last 2 starts against a couple of pretty good hitting, not elite lineups, but certainly the Reds and Giants are above average lineups. Well, 49 batters faced, he's given up 7 hits, 2 walks, 15 strikeouts. That's a good ratio. And in fact, there's been some bad luck there that have allowed him 4 runs over 13 innings worth of work. He has been dominant in those 2 outings, and it's worth noting that 2 of his last 3 starts have produced the highest fastball velocity of the season. Adam Wainwright, a bet on pitcher at this stage of the campaign.
Let's try to make you some money up next with Brian Blessing. We preview the U.S. Open and Play of the Day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, back on SportsBit. Time for 5 great minutes with Brian Blessing. U.S. Open preview, our second major, at Brian Blessing on Twitter. And Brian, with the U.S. Open, the story is always the course. Do you like it that these guys struggle and we see such high scores? And tell us about Oakmont.
Oh, I think everybody loves watching the best golfers in the world struggle, and we can empathize with them, the bad shots we hit out there. But I love seeing these guys challenged. Some of these tournaments, winning scores 26 under par. A birdie's not a special deal. Here, sometimes par is a special deal. In Oakmont, Pennsylvania, this country club is really, Paul, one of the tried and true traditional Northeast courses that's long been in the rotation. Chambers Bay was kind of a gimmick last year. This one is a monster test of golf. You better hit the fairways. Last time they played here, Cabrera's winning score was 5 over par.
Oh. Do they catch a break with the weather as they expect rain early on?
Some will and some won't. I think the fact that you'll get rain is going to soften the fairways up, which is just as important as the greens, because if you miss the fairway, you're basically playing for bogey. So, yes, some lower scores could be out there, and the tee times are going to be important for some guys, too. Some guys will get some rest. Some guys are going to have to play, maybe, if they wash out a lot of Thursday, they're going to have to play 36 holes. So you better pick a guy that's in shape, too, because the difference is, Paul, they have to try to finish this on Sunday. I mean, normally say, well, we'll just finish on Monday. But you really can't do that at the U.S. Open, because if it goes to a playoff, it's an 18-hole playoff. They've got to get this thing locked down by Sunday night.
Okay, so in the past, we've had Keimer, Simpson, McDowell, Lucas Glover. A lot of long shots, and guys who aren't big names have won this tournament. Any bombers out there? Anyone you're going to try to bet a little to win a lot on?
You just named one of them, bud. This tournament has a history of players winning multiple titles. And think of what those players were like. Lee Janzen, Curtis Strange, solid players, but they were not guys that were going to go win tournaments that were 20 under par. They weren't birdie machines. They were methodical players that would hit the middle of the green and were good putters and realized par was a good score. That's what the USGA tries to do with the setup. So guys have a history of being multiple champions. I love Martin Keimer. I bet him about a month ago at 80-1. He won at Pinehurst 2 years ago. And I think if he hits the fairways, this guy's in shape. He's got nerves. He will be able to handle the pressure. I think he's a great value play. He was 80-1 when I bet him. He's down to 60-1, but he's got a game that's tailor-made for this kind of course.
How about the big three, Spieth, McIlroy, and Day? And can Spieth get over the meltdown at the Masters when he blew it?
Oh, I think so. He's a young kid. I mean, he's come back and won since, and he's won even not playing his best. It's funny, they asked him the questions this week, could he, feel for Dustin Johnson? Because remember, Johnson, many people say he gave Spieth the U.S. Open last year. So after what happened to him at the Masters, now he knows how Dustin Johnson felt. These guys are young and fearless. I'm not worried about that. Dustin Johnson, he's got the length to be a factor. But can he kick the door down? His putting gets really suspect, but he played well last week. Justin Rose won recently, but he's got a back problem. I'll tell you who's interesting, Paul, and it may be crazy, but he's actually playing pretty good right now. But Phil Mickelson wants to win the U.S. Open more than any other tournament. He's given it away a handful of times, but he's got to be saying to himself, age-wise, that this is really right about the end of the window. This is his last shot. And he actually comes in here in pretty good current form. And that would be an amazing story if Mickelson was in contention.
Yeah, I'll get, yes. How about Adam Scott?
Scott, very solid. I mean, a major pedigree without doubt. He's got to hit it straight off the tee. I'm looking at some overlays, like Louis Oosthuizen always seems to pop up on the toughest of courses. Sure. He's a major champion. He had a chance to win the British Open. He's in contention, at the Masters all the time. Louis Oosthuizen's interesting. Brandon Grace last year had a big opportunity to win as a really solid European player. And I'll tell you what, you just look at Danny Willett. Talk about a lack of respect. How is he 40-1 when guys like Matsuyama and Watson and Adam Scott are 30-1? This guy just won the Masters.
Yeah. So the props you mentioned earlier here at Las Vegas at the Westgate, over under 282, low round 66.5, high round 90.5.
And the 66.5, the over is minus $1.50. But if you go on, and par is 70. So if you go on the premise that you're going to have at least one day with soft, moist conditions, somebody's going to shoot a 66, 4 under par. I would actually take the plus price on the under just only because of the rain. If the rain wasn't part of the equation, I wouldn't go near that with a telephone pole. Here's how tough this course is. Our friend Jeff Sherman over at the Superbook, he's got an actual prop up there. The highest score that will be shot over under by any individual, under 91.5.
Wow. I would go over. There's always someone who melts down on this course.
Well, and the other thing is, don't forget, this isn't like the Players' Championship or a WGC event where the best players in the world, the best field in the world is there. There have been sectional qualifiers where a club pro maybe got hot or a teenager got hot and won the qualifier. It's truly an open tournament. But, some of these guys are going to come in and absolutely get their head ripped off.
Yeah. That over-under 282.5 is for the winning score. All right. Enjoy it, Brian. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Oh, Paul, it's always a pleasure, bud. Have a good day.
We wrap it up next with the play of the day on SportsBit Betting Insight today.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much more.
Paulie, I always enjoy listening to you and Brian break down sports that I can't handicap. Whether it's golf, whether it's hockey, it's entertaining and it's informative. Well done. And I know that we're going right back to the U.S. Open for play of the day time.
So Brian likes Martin Kaymer to win about 40-1. We're going to go Kaymer to be the top European finish at 18-1. We have to fade Rory and Rose and Willett, Stenson, Garcia. But we're going to give it a shot there. And he makes an excellent point about the repeat champions. Top Euro finish. Top finish by a Euro. Kaymer. 18-1. The play of the day. Hope we cash a big one there. Tomorrow, Tennessee Titans and Game 6 NBA Finals preview on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.